Why are American schools failing? I think we can learn some lessons from my recent trip to Hillsdale College. And I'm going to talk to you about 4 specific areas where I really feel like they shine a lot of light on what we actually should be doing in America. Most Americans today, I think, would agree that our higher education does a really fantastic job some of the time of preparing some people for certain careers. But more and more it's the case that fewer and fewer people are choosing college. The scales have tipped. There's more women in college than men. And universities have blown up into kind of a money-making system, whereas they used to have an entirely different purpose at the founding of America. But I think most Americans would agree that our colleges and universities are also going very woke, very far left or liberal, and definitely have an agenda of socializing people to think and believe in certain ways, rather than sculpting the mind, focusing on truth, and teaching us how to think and how to be lifelong learners, which were the priorities at the founding of America. And so, why are American schools failing? I think we can learn some lessons from my recent trip to Hillsdale College. And I'm going to talk to you about 4 specific areas where I really feel like they shine a lot of light on what we actually should be doing in America, in our higher education especially, but also Hillsdale has an initiative of elementary, middle school, and high school charter schools and private schools across the country that they're promoting as well. Ronald Reagan said, "Hillsdale College deserves the appreciation of all who labor for freedom. Their creative outreach on national issues enables Hillsdale to cast a long shadow." So I had heard about Hillsdale. I knew it was a liberal arts school. I love the classical liberal arts, the kind of education that I received in adulthood while having 6 children, so you can do it too. And it makes all the difference in the world in how you see yourself, how you see others. The focus is on truth and true principles and finding ways to build on solid foundations. And this little tiny school is having huge, huge impact. Just like Reagan said, they're casting a long shadow. So I didn't know how small Hillsdale was until I actually went there because they're so incredibly popular. In fact, they have a newsletter that goes out monthly called The Imprimis, which they still print and ship. And, last I heard, and we've been getting the Imprimis for years, there were 3 million and then 4 million. Well, now there's 6.2 million people subscribing monthly to the Imprimis newsletter. And it's condensed versions of presentations that are given on Hillsdale campuses and in their programs. They have 30 online classes, and actually, I took some pictures and videos of, there's a room in the library where they have a lot of their old manuscripts and books, and it's just so incredibly beautiful. And there's a fireplace in there with some couches. And years ago, they decided to try filming an online class that would be offered for free to the populace, to whoever wanted to watch it. And it was just so incredibly popular, they just kept doing more, and now they're building a studio, or they may have finished a studio where they are recording these online classes. Millions of people have taken their online courses. And so, they know presidents, they know governors. There's a statue of Margaret Thatcher, and there's several statues on campus. They're all really beautiful, but Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan are in one area of the campus, kind of across from each other. They were friends in life. But apparently Dr. R knew them, and they helped in the creating of those statues. In fact, there's a funny little anecdote that Margaret Thatcher said her skirt was too short and that they needed to lengthen her skirt in the statue that they erected. I could name all kinds of people, very important people that have come and lectured there and taught there. You've probably heard of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, Jordan Peterson. You may not have heard of Austrian school economists, but Mises and Hayek taught there and lectured there, Russell Kirk, other really famous people. I found out today that Madeleine L'Engle has been there and taught there. So a lot of people I really, really admire. In fact, Mises left his library to the school, and on the downstairs, I guess it's the middle level of the college library, is his collection in its own room with his desk as well. So that's kind of the history that they have, the kind of impact that they have. But here's the thing, the campus is tiny. They own like 200 or 300 acres total in a couple different places, and people have gifted them a few homes and locations. But the campus itself, where the students spend most of their time, is, I don't know, not even, I don't even know how to, it's like there's a courtyard and there's some buildings around it, and then you walk for 10 minutes or so and you get to the fields, and it's just tiny. There's only 1,500 undergraduate students total on the campus, which you would never know because of the huge impact that they have. They've had 3 students clerk with the Supreme Court. They have one clerking there right now, and one of the men that we spent a bunch of time with is best friends with this man that's clerking at the Supreme Court and going to be best man at his wedding. So they are having huge societal impact for this tiny little campus that they have, and this smaller student body than I even knew that it was. And it kind of goes back to their beginnings. They've always been a classical liberal arts school. I have other videos about that. You can look it up and learn more about it. But that's basically the education that our founding generation had, the kind of education that America was founded on, coming through the Scottish Enlightenment and other important thinkers, dating back to the Enlightenment and with a Judeo-Christian ethic and worldview and belief system. But Hillsdale was founded in 1844. And the campus where it is now was moved to that location in the 1850s. And in the original charter in 1844, they stated that the school was open to any race, any color, any sex that wanted to come and gain a liberal arts education. So 20 years before the Civil War, Blacks and women were admitted to Hillsdale College to receive the same education side by side with men and receive the same degree. Other colleges were letting women in, but they were usually giving just a home economics degree if they gave any kind of degree at all. So very, very forward thinking. It's funny because, you know, one of the things that people like to think or say about schools like Hillsdale is that they're so backwards and, you know, they're just doing things like the old way and we've progressed and things are different now. But the truth is, they're just doing things the right way, in my opinion. There's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years of Western education that's built on a similar model that is just reading the great books, discussing them, writing about them, pulling ideas, seeking for the truth, and the corollary to that, the byproduct of that, is almost always an increase in faith. So all of those things are happening there. That's kind of a broad overview of the school. So what's the experience like for the students? And why would we want to fix American education to model the kind of school that they have? One that is open-minded, one that girds up faith and seeks after truth, one that looks at original writings and lets you think for yourself and is open to all forms of thinking and exploration in ideas. The students have an incredible experience. So we took several tours, we met several people, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But every single application, and last year they got more applications than they've ever had because they keep growing in popularity and they're kind of on everybody's radar now. So they had 3,200 applications. They read every single one of those at least 3 times. And they travel to meet with every single applicant in person, if humanly possible, so that they actually know who these people are that they're admitting, and they can get a sense of, is it a good match? Will they thrive at this school? Is it something that would be right for them? Is it something that would benefit the school? The student-teacher ratio is either 8 or 9, I'm not positive on this, student-teacher ratio. So for every 8 or 9 students, there's a teacher on campus, and they actually have certain students that they're responsible for, and it is very personalized. And I can say this from personal experience, having been there, it is very personalized. we had a student walk us around campus and show us different things, and we kept asking her questions about her experience. And what we found out was that, among other things, as far as knowing every single applicant and letting in the students they think will thrive the best and be the best match, they know those students so well that they pair them in the dorms. In fact, you must live on campus the first 2 years you're a student, and after that you can only live off of campus by application and approval, because they don't want you off campus if you're not doing well in your schoolwork. And so when you get there your freshman year, you have some ability to ask for a certain dorm that you might want to be in. You can even ask for a certain roommate if you want, but if you don't know anybody, they pair you with people that they think you'll get along with. And they look at your background, they look at your beliefs, they look at your interests and your major and all of those things. And this girl, Kaylee, this young woman that showed us around, told us that she is going to be a senior this coming year, and she is best friends with all of her freshman roommates because the school did such a great job of pairing her with people that were like-minded to her. They have a brand new gorgeous chapel. It is huge. It's definitely a big presence in the middle of the school, and they don't use it for Sunday services. They use it for a myriad of other things, and students can go in there and worship anytime that they'd like. They talk about their school, which from the very beginning charter has been non-sectarian, so anyone of any faith is welcome, and they do have students of all faiths. The school itself sees themselves as a Christian school, and there are crosses in the church, but not much else in the way of being, very heavy towards one sect or another. And the reason that they don't do services on Sunday is because they want the students to go out into the community and worship with the community. It's a small town, and in order to have good relations between the students and the community, they not only have the students worship off campus, and many of those churches adopt a student and help kind of watch over them, as well as the head of women and the head of men, as well as the teacher that oversees them, as well as all the other people that are making sure that they're having a great experience and taken care of. They also let the community come to all of their events for free. There's just a couple they have to pay for. And they also do incredible amounts of service in the community. In fact, they had a whole bunch of clubs up on the wall, many of them which were service-oriented. They rank really high. I think she said 4th in the nation for a number of hours logged for service per student. They do this really awesome Thanksgiving celebration where everyone comes into the student center, and for hours they eat and chat while they fill out thank you cards. And she said by the end of that time together of Thanksgiving, they have thousands of cards written to all kinds of people that they feel grateful to. Now, it is tough to get in. There's high GPAs, high test scores, but also it matters how badly you want to be there, and it matters the kind of character that you have. It matters how well-rounded you are. It matters who you are, not just how you're performing on tests. There was one student who told us that when she had COVID, that her teacher dropped her off some meals. And I'll talk about this more at the end when I talk about the people, but I've got to say, the kinds of reports that I heard from multiple students and the way that they go about shaping an experience for their students outside of the classroom is phenomenal. So what's it like inside the classroom? What's the teaching like at Hillsdale? Well, we went for a Hillsdale hostel, my son that's 16 and I, and we were by far the youngest ones there, so we were a bit of an anomaly, but we had a great experience. And our hostel had the subject matter of 20th century America. So they, in our particular hostel, and I understand that they're different each time that they do them, but in ours they chose 4 professors, and these professors came in and taught us different aspects of the 20th century. Now, I went in thinking this was going to be like some kind of cumulative master's class, like from beginning to end, kind of all the same, and I don't know, maybe drawn from one of the Hillsdale courses or something, but it was actually not that. And at first I was like, I don't know if I like this, or I don't know how I feel about this, but the more time went on throughout the week, the more I realized I really came to appreciate the different types of personalities and the different teaching approaches that are happening there. Now, most classes hover around 12 to 14 students. There are some, in fact, one of the professors told me that there are some classes where there's 20 to 30 students, but they only do that when they need that number of students for certain simulations or interactive activities that they're doing. Otherwise, they want small pods where there's lots of conversation and the students are having lots of success in the material. So we were taught by 4 professors. Dr. Paul Ray, one thing that he's a history professor there. He said, students have the opportunity to get a proper liberal education designed to prepare them for active citizenship. And of course, that word liberal, which I talked about in another video, comes from the word liber, which is libro. So it's the education to make us free. And that is what is attempted to be done there. Now, the sciences are also really strong, and there's multiple degrees that they offer, but they also have many really cool opportunities for the students in terms of they have a lot of connections in DC. In fact, they have a property in DC where you can go do an internship and clerk or intern, and just really cool opportunities in multiple fields. But Dr. Paul Ray could see this is a true liberal arts education in the traditional sense. Dr. Kevin Slack teaches politics there. Dr. Bradley Berner, he teaches history, but he really, and I don't know if his other classes are like this, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, but he's really the biographer. He said that we should inspire the upcoming generations to love through charity, which I absolutely loved. And then Dr. Khalil Habib is a politics professor as well. And so this is kind of how our days would go. And I'm just going to tell you this because it gives you a sense of what a student might experience there. So Dr. Ray would start out in the morning, and he was just, he had some notes in front of him, but it was clear he knew the material backward and forward. And he would just shoot us dates and facts and figures and explanations of things in the 20th century, what happened and why they happened. He started in, I guess, in the 1870s is when they consider that the 20th century began, because ideas were laid that informed the 20th century. Anyway, his was really, really fast. I couldn't take notes quickly enough. Lots of facts and figures and people and dates and information. And then Dr. Slack would come in, and he would do a bit of a rapid fire as well, but the nature of his focus was much more idea oriented. And he started us out by helping us understand the traditional kind of modern way of thinking, and then headed into the progressives. He did a great job of showing us the difference between the progressives and the liberals. And he would help us see kind of the whys behind it, the ideologies that were guiding people, the shifts in the worldviews in the 20th century that caused things to be different, caused our approaches to be different in, for example, foreign affairs. And then Dr. Berzer would come in. And Dr. Berzer is the slower paced, so friendly, so kind, so loving. A couple different times he came up to me, even when I didn't have my name tag on, called me by name and asked me if I had answered a question, if he'd answered my question from the previous day thoroughly enough, and did I have any other questions, and what kind of experience was I having. All of them were very friendly that way, but he told us about the 20th century through the eyes of individuals. So he was really the biographer. He told us stories. He gave us quotes. He helped us to see it in a much more biographical way, which was also very fascinating. And then Dr. Habib took us back 300 years and showed us the philosophy behind it all. He took us into Rousseau and Marx and Nietzsche, and he helped us understand how many of Rousseau's ideas, especially in his 2 popular essays, laid the seeds for the kind of thinking that led to the French Revolution and Marxism and things beyond. And he was the teacher that had the readings in the readings packet for us. Others had, and it just kind of matched their style. Like with Dr. Ray, we got this really robust, I don't know how many pages timeline. And with Dr. Slack, we got bullet listed notes for each day's lecture. And with Dr. Berzer, we got resources for further reading and some quotes from biographies. And then with Dr. Habib, we got the readings. And that's when we sat and read Rousseau together and picked it apart and deconstructed it. And of course, I really loved that, especially because I'm kind of the philosophical bent. But it was really such a good broad sampling of, they're all within that liberal arts tradition, but the teaching styles are very different, more interactive than others, always taking questions, always caring about the student experience. And, it's interesting because even as much as I've read and studied, I still gleaned a lot from I've still learned a ton. One huge question that's been lingering out there for me for a long time that I'd not been able to find the answer to was how exactly it was that World War I led to World War II, exactly what was going on. And we got a lot of details on what was happening in different countries and how the war reparations were handled and why, and just really awesome, fascinating stuff. Much better understanding of the progressives versus the liberals in the 20th century and their foreign policies and why that mattered so much. I've always wanted, Rousseau was one of those people that C.S. Lewis went, head to head with. Frederick Bastiat went head to head with him, and I'm sure other philosophers, I've just read those. And so, why did people take Rousseau so seriously? Why was he seen as so brilliant? Where Dr. Habib helped us understand that. Now, last of all, the people, the overall culture. And I think telling you an experience I had with one of the employees there will really go a long way in helping you understand why America can learn so much from Hillsdale. It's not just about the liberal arts education, which I genuinely believe every student needs, every human needs. We need to know how to be lifelong learners. We need to know how to seek out truth. It's not just because it's small classrooms and an intimate experience, although that's really important. It's not just because there's world-class professors who are there, not because of fame or recognition, not because they're seeking to be in all of the new upcoming magazines or to do research, but because they want to teach and they want to really build the next generation of thinkers and leaders. And it's not just because the caliber of students that you would be around as a student there are really phenomenal because they're the best of the best. It's a lot about the culture that's been bred there. And frankly, you could have those other things and other schools have those other things. And I have not done a tour of, most universities and colleges in America. But I know that most of them fall short in some significant ways. And I know that Hillsdale isn't perfect. But I really wanted to share this with you because there's so many important things that we can learn. And I think the culture is the most important. So there was a woman named Ashley, and she was helping with our hostel, and she was doing kind of some of the jobs that aren't the funnest, making sure we all had our name tags and that we were notified about things that were going on. And she would sit with us at meals and chat with us. And she was really an awesome woman. She might have been in her early 30s. And I asked her, I liked to ask people, how did you end up at Hillsdale? And I learned a lot about how people wound up there and why they're there. And it was a similar story to Ashley's, and she talked about how, she'd grown up nearby and, but she didn't go to school there. And then she ended up getting a job there, and she'd had this other career prior and just kind of accidentally landed at Hillsdale. And she talked a little bit about what she did, but it wasn't about that she loved what she did there as much as she loved being there. And she finished her story by saying, "You could not pay me enough money to leave Hillsdale." She said it 2 or 3 times. "You could not pay me enough money to leave Hillsdale." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "The people." And I know what Ashley meant because I spent a week there. And what I can tell you is that we met pretty much everybody. We spent time with the president, with the dean, with the head of admissions, with the second in charge, John Cervini. We spent a lot of time with him, got to know him really well. And all of them had no pride. They put on no false airs. They weren't trying to prove anything. They weren't trying to position. There was no arrogance. There was just complete openness, authenticity, humility, genuineness. And they weren't perfect people, but they definitely knew how to make you feel loved and important. And everybody we met made us feel loved and important. There was a professor I reached out to meet when we came to campus because I wasn't sure who we would be able to meet or how things would go. And he not only said, he emailed me back and said, you know, I'm just nobody. Like, why should he even answer me? He emails me back and he says, you know, I'm going to be in Spain with a study abroad group, but here's some other professors that you could meet with. And he carbon copied several other professors in that feed, 3 other professors, and 2 of the 3 emailed me back and took like an hour each just to sit with us. And over again, any other questions? Any other questions? Have you heard about this? Do you know about this? Is there anything else I can help you with? And now I know it was summer, and I know it was a quieter time of the year, and people had more time to spend. But there was no reason why they needed to take so much time for us. The head of admissions spent over an hour with us. They took us on these long tours. They just cared. They answered every single question. They took time, and they joked with us. They laughed at us. We had a lot of fun. There was kind of this dry sarcasm that we all engaged in. It was really funny. And it was so enriching. And I could, you know, multiple people, you know, from students who had graduated from there and stayed on, to professors who had come from some other place to Hillsdale. Everyone had the same story because I asked a lot of people why they were there. And it was always the culture, the people. I matter here. People matter here. Every single person is important, and we care about every single one. And that love and care, that attention to the individual, keeps everybody never wanting to leave. No one wants to quit. No one wants to move on. And students want to stay working there because they love it so much. I want to end with 2 really great quotes. This is Mark Levine. Hillsdale College is the finest educational institution in the nation. And Margaret Thatcher said, Hillsdale College symbolizes everything that is good and true in America. And so whoever is watching this, whoever is listening to what I'm saying, take a lesson from these 4 aspects of Hillsdale College and see where the university you're attending or you're supporting or the institution or organization you're involved in can learn from better teaching, better attention to the individual, better quality curriculum, better classroom experiences, and most of all, making people feel really important and really loved. Thanks for joining me today. If this has been helpful, head on over to audreyrindlisbacher.com where you can get my free training on the natural moral law, the framework of successful living, and go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss a video.